Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real? Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. Joining me from his car is Robbie Rip Rains. He has got power back, but internet is still out the window. And Steve Wildman Monrodis is leisurely leaned back and joining us tonight. We're glad to have him with us as well. But folks, continue to pray for the folks affected by all those storms, because just because some of them are starting to get power back, there are places where entire cities are gone. It's one of the worst natural disasters that's hit this country in decades. So keep those folks in your prayers. Boys, how the heck are you guys doing tonight?
Well, DA, I have not yet begun to defile myself. Sorry, Robbie.
Well, when you got a little bit of lag, it happens.
And there he is, unfortunately. It's like sitting at an intersection and waving each other through.
Yeah.
You go. No, you go. No, you go.
Seriously.
So anything exciting going on?
Well, Robbie's probably seen more exciting than the rest of us, but probably not the kind that he wants to.
Now, this is only my second day off since all that stuff happened, so I spent the day, doing some cleanup and stuff like that. It was actually pretty relaxing to clean up instead of work. So
well, that's awesome. I've just been working overtime, working myself crazy.
Well, when you're shorthanded as y'all are, overtime is not necessarily your friend, but your reality.
Yep. Well, like I told you before we went live, some of that overtime pay, because of the bonus they're throwing in on it, is like $100 an hour. I'll do some pretty sketchy shit for $100 an hour.
Beats the hell out of a Klondike bar any day of the week.
Well, I was joking around my boss because she never knows what's going to come out of my mouth, and she's like, "Would you be interested in doing this for they call it a Delta bonus?" I'm like, I'm not gay, but $100 is $100.
Is what it is, Steve.
They still got you guys pulling extra shifts on your department, Robbie?
Yeah, it's pretty much. Chiefs just said, if you want to come in and work, come in and work. It's kind of slowed down a little bit, but it's, I went Sunday night and worked a night shift, and I did again Monday night, and then kind of started backing off, getting back towards my normal schedule. But it's, just call after call about it. The first couple of days, it was like we were going to all the gas stations and dealing with disturbances of people fussing and fighting about gas, and people fussing about people coming and filling their trucks up and then filling up 10 or 15 gas cans. And, it's just, you feel sorry for both sides. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, sometimes those folks are filling up gas cans for generators.
Yeah. And, you understand it on that side, but you also understand the people who are waiting in line for 2.5 hours to get gas, and then they get up there and gas is gone because they're just trying to get gas in their car, and people in front of them. So you see both sides of it. And
yeah. It's a crappy situation all the way around, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's finally starting to sort of get back to normal.
Do you have some people down there locally doing some like really crazy hoarding crap like they did at the start of the plague?
Oh yeah,
you can't find toilet paper at Sam's Club. They don't have.
Well, that's what I was just saying. Roll. As soon as the Teamsters started talking about striking, lost your DA. Yeah, there you go. Now I can hear you. I lost your audio for a second.
Well, the thing is that dock workers strike that we knew was going to happen at the beginning of October. They reached a collective bargaining point, and they're not striking until after the first of the year. So the ports didn't shut down. And on top of that, toilet paper is not imported. Why are people
Right.
stockpiling it? Most of what comes into our area is made in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought it was hysterical. We went to Sam's Club to get something that wasn't toilet paper, and Rachel took a picture of the toilet paper aisles, and it looked like Black Friday at Best Buy.
Yeah,
Like, there's no paper. There's boxes all over the place.
I don't get it. I mean, we're not even affected by it, and people are going crazy.
Yeah, it's stupid. People that don't eat eggs or drink milk will take all the milk, all the eggs, and all the toilet paper because apparently that's what you need to stock up on.
Well, the toilet paper that we usually get at Sam's Club, it's the members mark, the Sam's version, and we really like that brand. That's the one we get, and we buy it by the big package, which is about $22. Sam's is completely out of it. Sam's was out of it on the app too. It couldn't even have it shipped to the house. But there are people on Amazon, third-party sellers, who are selling that exact thing of toilet paper for $60, and it's a $22 item.
Wow.
Price gouging.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If I could find people that do that crap, somebody be going to jail.
nowadays.
Would probably be me. LS 420 Stoner says, I just want to say D.A. Roberts, T.K. Blackwood, and Alex Aronson are my favorite writers. It's been your books to help me pass the time until we got power back in Aiken County, South Carolina. Hey, I'm happy to hear that. If my books can help in any way, I'm thrilled to death to hear that. So, folks that have been asking about Heart of Iron, I'm working on the final chapter now. I'm hoping to have it done later tonight or tomorrow. That means it'll hit edits, and I got to get a hold of my cover guy to get the cover finished. But Heart of Iron is almost done.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's
gonna be a good one.
I'll be sending the rough out to the alpha readers probably late tonight, and I'm expecting to catch some heat from the alphas too. I may get some strongly worded text messages.
Just remember, your loved ones could potentially kill you if the wrong person is killed off. Remember Jonathan told us when he was on the show the last time, Jonathan Mayberry, that he knows that only one character in his books is always safe, Rudy Sanchez, because his wife told him if he killed Rudy, she'd kill him. And,
I've never gotten anything like that from Annette, but when the Ragnarok books first came out, she did say, you better be nice to Wiley, because she was, of course, assuming Wiley was based on me. There's some similarities, but when I envisioned Wiley, I envisioned Michael Chiklis.
Like I said, I'm just warning you because I have never met Jonathan's wife, but he's 6'5", is an 8th degree black belt, and used to be a bouncer, and he's scared of the woman. Enough said.
Miss Lene says, "Who are you gonna kill?" Well, there's no gonna. The scene's already written. I'm writing the closing chapter, and that's all I've got left to finish out. So you'll find out soon. Northwood says he has plenty of space on his new bookshelf for new books. Well, I will get to cranking on that. Somebody sent me a message about what I thought that Bigfoot and Dogman, how they would be affected by these massive storms. And if they're subterranean, like we think, they would definitely be affected because a lot of those caves flood. I know here in Missouri, they tell you to get the hell out of the caves when it's raining because they will back up with water real fast. Hey, thank you for the super chat, man. He says, I'd like to know what happened if we had a Red Dawn kind of invasion and a Soviet patrol ran across a pack of Gugway.
They probably wouldn't be a Soviet patrol much longer.
Yeah, they would be a Soviet bowel movement probably at that point. heavy starch-based diet, the dogmen might get sick to their stomach.
With a bunch of Guckway and Dogmen that suddenly have a taste for vodka.
I think if it was a red dawn time situation, I think they better be more concerned about when they're walking through rural parts of Missouri and they hear banjo music coming from the deep woods.
Seriously. I had somebody at school the other day, or at school rather, at work. They were talking about militias for whatever reason. Probably something in the news caught their attention, and they asked me if Missouri had a militia, and I looked at them and I started laughing. I said, "We're a constitutional carry state. Missouri is a militia."
Basically. But what do you guys think? How do you think like massive flooding would affect both Bigfoot and Dogman?
I think it'll affect them just like it affects any other wildlife in the area. It's going to push them just like a wildfire. It's going to push them out of their normal habitat and their normal area, and they're going to have to seek shelter and new places to call home, just like any other animal or person.
Yeah, you figure, for generations, hundreds, thousands, millions of years, this has been happening. So this isn't new. But I think you're right. I think they're going to temporarily relocate, wait out the storm, and then hopefully could be able to work their way back. Or like humans, if everything is just gone scorched earth, and find somewhere else to live.
So it wouldn't surprise me to hear that in areas adjacent to the areas that were heavily damaged, activity will increase.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just take North Carolina for example. All those areas and in those probably in the national parks that got flooded when Lake Lure Dam busted. I mean, there's going to be massive upheaval of all kinds of animals. So
Justin Oldfart had a good comment. We should probably do a show on this. Actually, yeah, there was something happened. It was during World War II. A group of Russian special forces went into Finland and went into a valley that the Finns avoided. And when they later found the Russian unit, they had been basically ripped apart. An entire unit, an entire armed unit, had been killed and basically dismembered in a remote valley in Finland. So yeah, there's a definitely a show there. We need to pull more research on that and talk about that. But it's a
Oh.
pretty intimidating story.
Well, and Ms. Moon made a comment about how same thing happened when Mount St. Helens erupted.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I try not to panic with this kind of stuff, but seeing a quarter of a deer hanging off a tree that I can't explain, kind of puckered my butthole a little bit. Uh, so the wildfires are out west,
Hmm.
chasing everything east. You know, Hurricane ex-wife blew through the southeast and is blowing everything west. Missouri and Illinois and Kansas might get a little bit exciting with some of these cryptid sightings.
I'd be
You know,
interested to go back into Combs Ferry again to see if there's more activity now, especially now that it's starting to get cooler at night. Because we were there in the dead of summer, and it was still sweat your butt off late at night temperature, and with clouds of bugs buzzing around us. I'd like to
oh
go
my
back in
God,
there
yeah,
again
eat
now that
12
it's
pounds
cooled
of bugs
off.
every time you take a breath.
Yeah,
seriously. Well,
got
at
my share of
midnight it was.
protein that night.
I was going to say at midnight it was hotter than Satan's nutsack.
Mary Cole says, "Do you think they can sense disasters like some animals can?" Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, they're far more in tune to their surroundings than we are. I mean, most people, I live in the Midwest. If it weren't for storm sirens, we'd probably never know a tornado was coming until it was on top of us.
Yeah. Well, and there's been some evidence that storms and low pressure systems can generate some infrasound, and there are some running theories that some of these critters either communicate with infrasound or can hear infrasound.
Well, Harley, our dog, Harley does not like storms. They freak him out all the time. and we notice his behavior changing before any of us have even heard anything. He's already trying to get in everybody's lap, wanting to be like right up underneath you. He's already getting nervous long before we've noticed a sign.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of dogs are that way.
Now you'd think for a dog that's 80 pounds and pretty strong as a freaking ox, he wouldn't be terrified of much. But fireworks and storms just freak him out.
Yeah, if he wants to bolt at something, you got to hold him back with a logging chain, but he'll hide
Just
under your feet when fireworks go off.
yeah. Someone pulling up on you there, Robbie?
Yep.
You need to mute.
Yeah. I'll be right back.
All right. Looks like they're pulling off. Or for those of you who don't know, Robbie's coming to us from his vehicle. He's got Wi-Fi in the car, but still no internet signal at home. So much like I would be if I was sitting in a parking lot, the only place I could get internet signal, and I had a car pull up next to me, I'd be pretty damn nervous too.
Yeah. Well, if ever needs be, you and I could always do a show from the grocery getter.
That's true.
I'm back.
Brent Roberts just popped in. Says just dropped in to say hello. In Asheville, we have spotty cell signal and still no water and power. I'll catch up on the lives later. Hey man, you be safe, and we're praying for y'all. Just we let you be sure understand we're all praying for you, and we're going to be talking about some stuff here in a little bit about how we can hopefully help in at least in some cases, because Scallywag Tactical has a warehouse in North Carolina, and Craig Burhart, the guy that owns Scallywag, has set it up through the Scallywag warehouse in North Carolina because they still have power and everything there at their warehouse. Where if you want to help with supplies for victims of the storm, you can buy them on Amazon and have them shipped to the Scallywag warehouse, and they're sending trucks out every day to affected areas to give those supplies away.
That's awesome.
So I'll put the address up here in a little bit. Josh Dalton, if you'd do me a favor and find that address and then text it to me, I'll put it up on the screen here in just a little bit. But this is where rubber meets the road far better, because we're hearing stories about FEMA not getting supplies in where they're supposed to be, and we're and in some cases supplies are just not getting there at all. But these will definitely go to somebody that is going to get them to areas that are some of the most affected.
Yeah.
So that's another great thing about Scallywag is they are doing everything they can to help.
That's pretty awesome. It does help that they're all a bunch of veterans.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
You never really do quit serving, do you?
No, that your oath never really expires.
Well, and the whole response to things there just don't make a whole lot of sense. You're hearing a lot of conflicting stories, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But on a plus note, you're like I've said, in emergency situations, brings out some of the best and some of the worst in people. I haven't been hearing a whole lot about like looting or anything like that, but I have been hearing a lot about neighbors helping neighbors and helicopter pilots going in and helping pull out survivors. So there are great stories coming out of this of people doing everything they can to help, and let's hope it continues. I mean, these kind of things should really just bring us together, because even if you don't live in an area that's affected, it affects all of us.
You know, we've talked about Cleves McFarland before on our channel. One that does the kind of the automotive type stuff and just a little bit of everything. He just bought the helicopter that he found abandoned in Venezuela, had it fixed up at Thoroughbred Aviation in Kentucky, went and picked it up, got it home, I think the day before this hit, and heard about it. He flew his personal helicopter, him and his wife, flew it in and started flying supplies to people, flying people that were trapped out. I mean, he spent like 2 days in there flying his own personal helicopter, paying for his own fuel to take supplies to people and fly people out of places where they were trapped. Really good.
That's
That
awesome.
people like that do stuff like that.
That ain't cheap. I mean, it
I'm
takes
gonna,
hundreds of dollars to get one of those up for just an hour or two.
yeah. Here that is, folks. This is from Craig Burhart himself. He posted this in the Scallywag group. It's called the Scallywags, uh, and it's if you want to help, if you want to order anything, and it's saying some of the stuff that people are really needing, like baby supplies, rope, chainsaw bar oil, two-stroke oil for the chainsaws, tarps, coolers. Uh, Cases of water, gallons are better because they can get reused. Blankets, dog and cat food, about anything you can think of. You can send these items to Joey and Martha, who will organize and get them loaded on the trucks into affected areas. You can ship them to Scallywag NC Fulfillment, 121 South Middleton, St. Robins, North Carolina, 27325. Or you can go to SamaritanPurse.org if you're looking for a way to help monetarily. But folks, if you got a chance to write that down or copy it down, I'll zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. But this is how we can help. And I'm so proud of the guys at Scallywag that are doing this. I'm going to be sending them some stuff myself, and I've already donated to a couple of charities. So you know, I, and I if if I had the means, because my back is shot, I would just jump in the car and go hang out with Robbie and help him. But unfortunately, my health won't let me do that. But if you're like me and you just there's not much you can do physically, there's things you can do both monetarily and materially that can help, because it just doesn't seem like they're getting the response they should from our folks in office. So I'm going to go ahead and take that down now. But again, if you get a chance to screenshot that or whatever, folks, get that information down. And if you can, send a little something their way, because I know Craig and his people, they're getting it straight out to the areas that are affected.
Oh, uh, Josh Dalton just made a correction, and I double checked it real quick on Google. The name of the town is actually Robbins. The ST is an abbreviation for street
Oh,
for
is
the
it? Okay.
middle sister. Yep. I just
Okay.
double checked it to make sure.
All right. Okay. Well, I read that out wrong. It's 121 South Middleton Street, Robbins, North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, it's like a suburb of Raleigh.
Okay.
So, sorry to interrupt your DA.
And Craig's doing that on his own dime.
Oh, yeah.
They're sending trucks out to all of these little towns that need help. They're not getting anything in this other than wanting to help. Uh, so again, my prayers and my thoughts are with the folks in those affected areas. And if you feel like you can help and want to send something, that's definitely how you do it. But let's get back to talking about cryptids, because, like Robbie and I were saying earlier, we were talking, and right now, especially for the folks in affected areas, I'm sure they would much prefer to think about something else for a little while. So let's talk Bigfoot and Dogman. Robbie, you had the idea of talking about some of the crazier, creepier stories we've heard. And I thought this would be a great opportunity for each of us to talk about either a Bigfoot or a Dogman story that really affected us. And since it's your idea, brother, I'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of stories out there to pick from. But to me, and I don't know if it's one that like affects me in a negative way. I mean, obviously it's scary to think about, but the one that just it's just like, wow, that's just, I don't know if I could go through that situation the way those people went through. It was Palmyra wolf, or is it the Palmyra
The
wolves?
Palmyra
Is that how
Maine.
it's? Yeah.
Yeah,
I just watched another show about it the other day, and it just floors me to think of how scary that situation was for those people. Um, and for those of you who don't know, yeah, I'll try to paraphrase the story. But basically, the husband had got hurt at work or something like that. He was disabled, couldn't work his job. They had to get rid of their house, and his wife was able to find a job in Palmyra. I believe it was in Palmyra. Well, and it was close to where they live or where they had moved into, because they found this. I guess it was like a farmhouse that they were
small farm.
renting, and it was on a pretty good tract of land, I believe. Just had a nice old farmhouse and a little barn. Had a gravel driveway, like a little fenced-in pasture area. And then past that, on into the woods. And they really liked the place. And the husband was a lifetime hunter, but I'm assuming his wife was not as big on guns and hunting as he was. So when they moved in, he was starting to take the guns inside. She said, "Nah, not doing that." So their older son, who lived on his own, he came in and helped his dad build a nice little lock box and everything to put the guns out in the barn. And the husband and wife kind of got a habit of sitting out on that nice little front porch area, and they got in the habit of sitting out on the front porch at night and just drinking their coffee and watching the sunset and just sitting out and listening to the sounds of nature. And one night they saw this like pulsating light out in the field area, or in the woods rather, just past the field. And while they were watching it, trying to figure out what was going on, they noticed that all the sound, all the ambient sound, insects, everything just it stopped. Um, so I don't know if the son was there or if he called him. Anyway, the husband and son go off in the woods looking to see if they can find out what it is. They think it's somebody out there spotlighting, and the husband thinks he gets a feeling that they're being watched or followed. So they go back to the house. Um, don't really think much more about it. And a couple nights later, maybe, or maybe the next night, I can't remember how it was. They're out there again, and they don't think anything else about it. Well, they start noticing the sounds dropping again. So the wife shines a big flashlight out into the tree line area, and they see, I think it was it 3 sets of eyes, DA, or more?
I think we lost him, at least temporarily.
I,
He glitched.
sorry, I did. Anyway, they see several sets of glowing greenish yellow eyes looking back at them. They get back in the house. They kind of start battening down the hatches, so to speak. The wife gets up, takes her flashlight, shines out back out to see what's going on, and they've moved from the tree line back into just past the fence into their yard. She goes upstairs where their daughter's at, tries to wake her daughter up. Daughter's just kind of whatever. Wake me up when there's something serious happening. Well, while the wife's upstairs trying to get the daughter up, husband decides he's going to go make a run for the guns. Gets out, gets up back to his truck, and notices that there's a couple of them moving in on him as the motion detecting light from their barn comes on. Well, he turns around, runs back in the house, slams the door, from the way the story reads, just barely before the thing gets to the porch where he's at.
Oh.
And these are all like dogman type creatures that they're describing. And said that when they were moving with a light on them, or with the light off of them, they were moving on all fours. But as soon as the light would shine, they would shine a light on them. They would stand up on 2 legs, and they said they were roughly 7.5 feet tall, I believe. And
Yeah, I think that's what they described.
And this went on all night. And they finally ended up going into they had 2 hunting dogs, and the hunting dogs were pretty much tail between their legs, hid in a corner all night, whining, didn't move. And these were supposedly like really good hunting dogs that usually weren't scared of anything. So, like I said, it goes on all night, and they finally make it through the night. The older son comes back over. Him and his dad go out walking around. They find all kinds of footprints all around the house, and they said the weird thing about the footprint is the front part of it looked like a really big canine, but it had an elongated heel in the back of it. And they said, I don't remember exactly how long. They said they were like 12 to 13 inches long. Does that sound right, DA?
It was much bigger than you would expect a canine print to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you could see the front pad, and then the heel was in the back. So you'd see like the front pad looking like the front part of a dog or a canine, and then you'd see this elongated pattern with a heel in the back of it. So needless to say, they did not stay at that house much longer. They found them another place to stay. But I didn't know this part about the story, and I don't know if you did or not, DA, but supposedly there's a couple more people that have moved into that house since then, and they've had other kinds of like supernatural type stuff, and they actually some people talked to the original couple, and he said that he had seen like a little ghost girl, which he was like, I didn't think nothing about it because the little ghost girl didn't bother me. He said, but those big wolf things did bother me. But there were some other people that had some supernatural type experiences in that house.
Sounds
So
like
they think it might be
really
something
bizarre.
tied to the house. Or do what?
Yeah, so it sounds to me like there's something really bizarre going on in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, some kind of concentration of energy or juju or whatever.
Something bad.
So yeah, that to me is just like that's one of the most phenomenal stories to me that there is around. I've always, ever since I first heard that story, I've always loved it. I think wasn't it Josh that told that story first?
Mhm.
From first when we talked about it, because we talked about it when he was on the show with me and you that night.
Yeah.
And to hear him tell it's a lot better than hear me tell it. But
Yeah, you did a good
that's one of
job.
my favorites.
So
Yeah, you did
Palmyra
good.
is in Palmyra, Georgia, or
Maine.
Maine?
Palmyra, Maine.
Yep.
Okay. Angela Monroe had the same question. She's like, New York?
Palmyra,
So-
Maine.
Yep.
So
then
that far
supposedly
north,
there's
you could
still sightings in that area even today.
say up there in New England, you could be dealing with Gugway up there very easy.
Or even a Wendigo. I mean, that's old Algonquin areas.
Well, that's true. Holy crap. And see, I thought Stephen King was the scariest thing in Maine.
He's in Florida now. He
Oh, is he?
retired and went south.
Bastard.
Jeff Yarrington said, I just spent the whole week in Franklin, Maine. Did you see anything weird while you're up there, dude? That would be pretty cool. Says, I wonder if the house might be either in a hot spot or near some sort of ley line. It's entirely possible. I mean, we discovered that there are no less than 3 ley lines that pass through LBL. So, and supposedly an intersection not far south and kind of east of us, which puts it right down by Table Rock Lake.
Which does not surprise me.
No.
Nope, not surprised at that at all. Got the medical bill to prove it.
Steve, what do you think is one of the creepiest stories you've heard?
Oh, honestly, I'm probably going to butcher the name of it. What was it? Is it Port Lock?
Port Lock, Alaska?
Port
Chatham and Port Lock. It's
Port
actually
Lock,
two
yes, thank you.
towns. They both of the towns were abandoned. Port Lock and Port Chatham were right there on the same peninsula, but you always hear about one or the other, but people sometimes fail to realize it was actually 2 small towns that were abandoned.
Yeah, Port Lock, I think is the one that probably it's a toss up. That is one of the ones that really gets me, and what gets me about that one is the fact that there's so much. I realize it's conversational, but so much physical evidence, like large pieces of machinery that, humans couldn't have moved, and there was no machinery on site that could have moved it, it's moved all over the place, when the canning factory was all taken apart. The thought of the amount of muscle mass that must have been involved there. And Roxanne Delgado read my mind. And Hanabi is the other one that gets me.
Hanabi.
When you're telling the story and they're burrowing under the house and coming up through the floorboards and shit, I mean, that's a whole nother level of pucker.
Yeah.
I don't know I'm okay with the fact that these are very large animals. I'm okay with the fact that these are very large carnivorous animals that apparently have a taste for long pig. Where I have the problem is the fact that they're so goddamn intelligent. I don't mind dealing with a 250, 300 pound dog, but if the dog's as smart as I am, I'm a little concerned. I got no problem going out petting something I shouldn't have. But, when you're talking about this kind of stuff, that's a whole other kind of messed up, man. And you figure...
You should try throwing them the chocolate from the MREs.
Yeah. If these things have survived, what have they gone through? How adapted are they? Are they going to outlive us? I could accept that we're not the top of the food chain. I've tell that to any person who's end up as grizzly shit
or gator.
But we're not dealing with something that's smarter or as smart as we are, and that's concerning. And your books kind of bring that to the light. It's something I never feared until I read your books. It just like I never feared zombies until I read Robert Kirkman's books. I don't know. It's a horror trope that you don't really worry too much about. It's something to entertain your friends with until you start getting these details that make you realize how anthropomorphic all this stuff is and how it may have evolved be a parallel to you.
Until you find part of a deer carcass in a tree.
Pretty much.
Steve, that was Steve's coming to Jesus moment, I believe.
We're past the 30-minute mark. Fuck you, DA.
Hey, I wasn't going to say anything, Steve. I already got cussed out about that once. I didn't want to get cussed out again.
I'm going to behave myself, and I looked at the time. I'm like, no, I'm not going to behave myself.
Yeah, we're well in.
We're sitting there, and Robbie's standing next to me after I finally realized what it was, and my mind is trying to process things, and I'm smelling burning rubber as my paradigm has shifted and missed the shift. And then I'm putting two and two together, realizing based on the information that Robbie's given me that nothing that I know of would have done that. When he's like, well, that's standard mountain lion behavior, but the tree's not big enough for a lion. I looked over him and I'm like, fuck you, Robbie.
It wasn't big enough for a mountain lion.
Well, it wasn't.
The tree was only that big around.
It wasn't, but ignorance is bliss. It's like that line.
Ignorance may be bliss, but you don't want to be ignorant when you're in their territory.
Well, no, but for a minute there, I was with the largest standing army in Missouri. With all you LEOs and military and everything. I was perfectly comfortable being the least prepared of the room. You guys were guys I trust and well vetted as far as I'm concerned. I knew if something went south with standard critters, y'all were going to get my ass out of there.
Well, I remember when we found that section where that concrete tabletop that probably weighed north of 1,000 pounds had been thrown into the trail about 30 feet from where it had been ripped off the picnic table. When we found that and realized what it was, I can't remember if it was Wyatt or Lieutenant Jenkins, but one of them just went, shit. Like, what the hell?
Well, considering
just the look on their face like, oh my God.
The rebar in that weighed a couple 100 pounds. And then on top of that, you got, 9 inches of concrete. concrete's heavier than you think it is.
Yeah.
A wheelbarrow full of concrete is almost more than one man can move. I think we're greatly underestimating the size of that. I think it's 12 to 1,500 pounds if it's an ounce.
Oh yeah, it was well over 1,000.
And
It was 6 to 8 inches thick, about 5.5 to 6 feet wide, and a good 8 to 10 feet long.
Five or six of us dragging it out into the middle of the trail just to fuck with people is one thing.
I don't think we could have dragged it.
For it to have moved 30 feet without touching the space in between. Yep.
Yeah, it definitely took something, like Wyatt said, it took something big to do that. And there's no way that was done with heavy equipment, because there was so much down trees and big rocks everywhere. You couldn't get a vehicle in there.
No, there were boulders the size of me out there.
Yeah, there was no way you could get anything bigger than a bicycle in there, and I wouldn't try to ride a bicycle at all with all that broken terrain.
Nope.
Cajun Dog says, do you guys think this is where the Ulf Hednar came from? I know this is where my clan started from, at least the old stories I was told. It's entirely possible. I mean, it could explain some of the stories of the Ulf Hednar. Or they could simply have been people that were, wearing the skin of a wolf and had taken like a mushroom extract or something to make them go berserk in battle. But we don't know, because the records of those days are gone. So I would say, the legends had to come from somewhere, and we let you draw your own conclusions from that. But I definitely think that these things have been known to a lot of people over the last several thousand years.
Don't underestimate the power of mushrooms, but I think your guys are right there. I'm trying to imagine, and it entertains me thinking about the people that determined what mushrooms were edible.
Yeah. Well,
can you imagine the research on that?
Yeah.
It's like, well, Robbie ate that one and it killed him. Okay, we're going to avoid that one. Mikey did okay with that one. He seemed to be pretty good.
He acted weird for a while.
This third one, Steve saw Jesus for a week. Yeah.
When we look back at that, I mean, the amount of strength it took to move that tabletop, and folks, I've had pictures. I need to go back into Combs Ferry and take more pictures. The thing about it is we were so caught up in the moment, we didn't take near as many pictures as we should have. We should have been shooting a lot more video and taking more pictures, but we were all just so much there in the moment that it didn't really even cross our minds, other than like when we found the deer carcasses and some of the photos we took of like the big boulders and stuff. But I've taken a lot of photos from inside Joe Bald, and Joe Bald looks like you could go in there with a trimmer mower and trim back some of the brush and open up some of those campsites. Combs Ferry does not. Combs Ferry looks like something out of a Mad Max film. It's like post-apocalyptic in there. Everything is destroyed. Big boulders all over the place. I mean, it is a different world in there. And the fact that
grown up a lot more.
Yeah, I bet it's grown up even more since we were there. But the fact that it's so hard to get to in the first place makes me think that I think that was probably something's way of warning people to stay the hell out of there, because we found that fish stuck in a tree, and we found that part of the deer part that had been twisted and torn off, not cut, not chewed off. You could see where it had been the leg had been twisted and then ripped free, because part of the hide was still attached to it. I think we were definitely being warned about that area.
Kevin Bode or Bodie, I apologize, Kevin, if I butcher your last name. He made a comment that a bag of concrete's 80 pounds. So let's assume conservatively that it takes 15 bags of concrete to make one of those tables.
Plus that's
1,200 pounds inside. Right there. Yeah, that's 1,200 pounds, not counting the rebar.
Yeah, that thing was massively heavy. I don't think those of us there, I don't think we could have moved it. I don't think there was really a way to get our fingers underneath it to even lift it. It would have taken heavy equipment to move that thing.
Wow.
Roxanne, I'm not ignoring you. That's the one I was saving for me. The Siege at Lockett Ranch is one of my favorite stories. It's
That's a good one too.
it's a terrifying story about a family that fought desperately to keep this group of dogmen from taking their land and their farm away from them, and ultimately they lost. Um, I would love to be able to go down there, but I hear that the local authorities aren't real thrilled about keep people coming down there poking around. So I would probably go down and make some contacts and then explain to them I was researching and see what I could get done from there. But it wasn't just like a week or so ago I was hearing about animal mutilations in that area. There are roads out there that truckers won't park on. Um, so there's definitely something in that area, and that if you look on Google Maps around what is that? What's the name of that town? Taylor, Mississippi. If you look on Google Maps around that, there is a lot of water and a lot of timber. So there's plenty of territory something like that could be hiding. Marcus Antonius says the gray one always comes to mind. Yeah, the gray one was way too smart. And when they had ultimately laid siege to the house when the family tried to defend it, they were coming in. If it hadn't have been for luck as the sun was coming up, that those things fell back. I don't think any of them would have escaped that house. Cryptid UFO says 6 by 6 by 6 inches concrete weighs approximately 1.2 tons. Yeah, that was a big like concrete style picnic table that the lid had been ripped off of, and it was easily every bit of 6 inches, maybe even 8 inches thick, by about 6 feet wide by probably 10 feet long. It's a big picnic table.
Oh yeah, it's one of those 8-person picnic tables that you see at pretty much every campground that is owned by the Department of the Interior.
Yeah.
I think they have one pattern and they make every table out of that.
Well, I know the that's pretty much the way their Army Corps of Engineers does it. They've got molds that they make these tables with, so they just keep reusing the same molds.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find
Well,
some of the
and
pictures from Joe Bald.
Something that we've kind of not talked about when we talked about that picnic table out there. Think about what we saw in Joe Ball, me, you, and Noah. We saw a lot of those tables that pieces were just snapped off of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And that takes
snapped
a
off
tremendous amount
and
of
no,
strength.
nothing. How Wyatt just said the part where it would sit was in shambles. Yeah, it was. It was. I only saw it from a distance because by that point I was pretty much freaked out. That and I couldn't freaking walk. But yeah, from what I could see, the table itself looked like a grenade went off. The remainder of the table.
Yeah, it was not in good shape. And and Combs Ferry and Joe Bald, like I said, it's night and day. Uh, Joe Bald still looks like you could camp there. In fact, we
Yeah.
saw some people that were stealth camping there, uh,
Oh yeah.
but you couldn't do that in Combs Ferry.
Well,
There's nothing left.
when I was showing the pictures to Rachel, she went with us to Joe Bald that first time, and she's like, "I'd like to go out here and catfish." I mean, she wasn't scared remotely, and there's no activity that night that we were all there. But when I showed her the pictures of Combs Ferry, she's like, "You're out of your mind for hanging out there."
Yeah, Annette told me she thought we were crazy too for even going in there.
Yeah, there was a special kind of stupid going on, but I still love you guys.
Well, I enjoyed it. I would go back. In fact, I want to go back as soon as I can. But I'm kind of trying to put it off a little bit until we get a really good cold snap, so the mosquitoes and ticks go back to hell where they belong.
Yeah. And take the gnats with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
just be
we
careful if it's too cold. Some Bigfoot might want to love you a long time.
Well, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with, I guess. I'm trying to find pictures of one of those campsites.
Medkit includes tourniquets, Israeli bandages, quick clot, and baby oil.
It's Bigfoot, not Diddy. Apparently, I did not get any pictures of the campsites. I'll rectify that the next time I'm out there. I'm going to get a lot more images.
Wyatt said I forgot the raspberry preserves.
And a beard trimmer.
And the beer trip.
You know, that whole thing ain't too bad until you run out of jelly.
Yeah, apparently I didn't take any pictures of the campsites. I'm an idiot. Well,
Well, just like
maybe
Combs
me and
Ferry, your
Noah
mind
will
was
run
on
down
other
there
things.
tomorrow. And maybe me and Noah will run down there tomorrow. But the Seizure Locket Ranch, I mean, that one, it just stands out to me because it's just that, you know, it involved an entire family, and apparently some of the family still lives in the area, but the land was never resettled. Um, I don't think it'd be too terribly hard to find. Because especially the amount of description in the story. If you haven't heard the Seizure Locket Ranch, Dark Waters does a telling of it that is just absolutely awesome. Fantastic telling of that story, and the tremendous amount of detail. I think just based on that account alone, it'd probably be possible to to find that ranch. And if we did, I'd probably first thing we would probably do is survey the area with drones. Um, I think drones can see in a lot of places we wouldn't be able to get to, and I think that'd be the perfect way to start that investigation. That's another one of those places I want to go and film live. Um, if I can get the equipment set up and do the things we're wanting to do, that's another one of those places that I definitely want to go and film and do a live broadcast from these locations.
You know, we're making the assumption though that the either the Department of the Interior or the Corps of Engineers hasn't taken possession of the land.
It's entirely possible.
Well, and that's what we end up seeing a lot of these places when stuff like that happens, so they can come in and hush up and clean up stuff, so nobody can come find out what happened really.
Roxanne says, I watched a video outside a small town in the Ozarks. People would see a big hairy creature, and the way they describe it is like a gugway. Roxanne, if you still got that video, can you send that to me? Larry Berlin says, DA, you ever researched around Stockton Lake? Not yet. That's another area we're planning on getting to this fall. I've talked to some folks that have found tracks along the shore up there in Stockton, and I'm hoping we can, before spring, we can get Doc and Robbie back down here, and we're going to plan some expeditions into places like that, and way things have been going, and I'm making a lot of strides forward with when it comes to my health. Hopefully, I'll be in good enough shape by then where I can backpack in. And we're going to get off the beaten path. We're not just going to go where we can film from a parking lot. Well, some of the places I took Robbie when he was here last time, if you didn't have a good 4-wheel drive or a vehicle that was good at getting into these places, you might not have got in there. I've got a better map of the area now. Down around Smiddle Cave, that's another area we want to go and film because I know of more caves down there. So we've got a lot of places right here in the Ozarks that we're planning on getting back into, and we're also planning another expedition back into Combs Ferry, and hopefully this time we'll be able to go live while we're there.
We're not quite as crazy as like Michigan and LBL and some of these other places, but we do seem to have a little minor epicenter of this kind of weirdness around here.
Well, thinking about it is one thing I've noticed is we see a lot of activity all over the place around these man-made lakes. simply because they tend to attract a lot of wildlife, and Missouri is loaded with man-made lakes. Table Rock's man-made, Taneycomo's man-made, Stockton Lake's man-made, Lake of the Ozarks, Truman. We've got multiple huge lakes, and people don't realize how big some of these lakes are. And you can Google this and check it for yourself. But Lake of the Ozarks, which is right smack in the middle of Missouri, has more shoreline than the state of California, and that's not an exaggeration. Because of the way it twists and turns through the Ozarks, following an old river path, there is more shoreline on Lake of the Ozarks than in the entire state of California.
I
That's
just thought of
crazy.
something as you were talking there, DA. These are all man-made lakes, so these are bodies of water that were created unnaturally.
With huge chunks
Could
of
that have?
land that are controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers, every one of them.
Well, that wasn't where I was going with it, but similar. Could the fact that these were humans gravely disrupting the flow of nature cause an uptick in these things? We're not talking about the seasonal flooding that chases out their game trails. We're talking about an entire fucking town is underwater.
I got a really good tip just recently we've had him on the show. You guys have seen him. He's my friend Wes. He's Navajo, and he sent me a message the other day. He said, "I've got something you might want to look into." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Acorns." I'm like, "What do you mean acorns?" He said, "Watch the acorns. When they're dropping in certain areas, it attracts the deer, and sightings go up."
Huh.
He said it's something he's noticed, and his parents had noticed that when there's a big crop of acorns, that brings in the deer and the elk to eat these acorns, and right on their heels are these big predators.
Yeah, I mean that's a very known thing in deer hunting and anything like that. Watching that because a lot of people that do food plots, they'll watch that kind of stuff because they know that deer are not going to come to food plots if there's a lot of acorns on the ground because they're going to go eat that before they'll come to a lot of these food plots. So that's a very plausible thing that I would say probably would work out.
Well, and like White Estes commented, they're a good food source. They're high in the right kind of fats. They're high in protein.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I was in a situation where I had to embrace my inner Les Stroud, I'd eat some damn acorns.
Yeah. Tim Trimmel says, "Da, Robbie, and Steve, do you think there's more sightings than what the records show?"
If we're talking the official government records, absolutely. Absolutely.
I
The
think
kind of stuff that you
probably
can't get with a FOIA request.
right, but I think when you start looking at like databases that even like groups like um, Bigfoot BFRO and like the East Coast Bigfoot Research Organization, they've got databases where they've got sightings listed in them. A few organizations have databases. There's some repeating, but there's also a lot of stories that they don't share. And I think that even with all of those that they've compiled over the last 20, 25, 30 years, I think it's still just a small percentage of the actual sightings because most people don't want to come forward.
Well, no, they're going to
Well,
think
and
you're
like we
crazy.
talked about before, with the BFRO, they've got certain qualifiers that it has to meet certain things before they'll even post it. So, I mean, right there, that tells you there's more sightings that they get
They're not even
than
posted.
what they put on their website anyway. So,
Look at,
I mean,
look at Dr.
easy answer
45
is
120's
yes.
comment there, boys.
1.5 to 3 tons. Shit.
Yeah. So there's no way that was put there by a couple of guys wanting to pull a prank on somebody because
Oh, absolutely not.
it was 30 to 50 feet away from where it had been broken off the old table.
Oh yeah, at least 15 yards, because it was reaching the limit of where I could get my light on it. Well, when I was being so brave and shining my light on it from the road.
You know, by the time we found that, we were pretty far into the park, and that's when we were hearing vocalizations. We'd had rocks thrown at us. I mean, you know, we had some activity, and Noah kept hearing like what he thought was language on the
Oh, the
parabolic
scatter mic.
mic.
Yeah.
I still got to get that recorder from you, Steve, so I can figure out how to record the parabolic
Oh,
mic.
sure. Yeah, I've still got it. We just haven't crossed paths. We need to meet up. I go back to work on Tuesday. One of the next couple days, we need to meet up and maybe have a beer or five, and
Sounds
I'll
good.
pass it off to you.
Okay. I still got to get you
Okay.
that plaque that Robbie made for you anyway.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I know a place that's got some good burgers, and you know the one,
I
the
do know
actual
the
Steve's Pub and Grub.
one. Steve's Pub and Grub Light.
Oh, seriously,
It's not
if
quite
it
not
only
quite big enough, but it does
nope,
have some cool
not
shit on the walls
not quite big enough.
And good food.
But
and
oh
good
my
food.
God, yeah. You know, any place that has both Flight and Guinness on tap, that's where I want to drink.
Well, you got Guinness on tap. Yeah, you got me right there.
Oh,
Steve likes to laugh about a time that him and his wife and me and my wife went out to eat at this place that claimed to be a pub, and when I ordered a Guinness and they told me they didn't have it on tap.
God, so yeah, they claim to be an Irish pub, and I'm partway through, placing my order for a shepherd's pie or rather a cottage pie and a beer and whatnot, and he tries to order a Guinness, and they tell me they don't have it, and he literally looked at the server like he shit on the table, and I almost did a spit take with the Killians that I was drinking because I could read the expression completely. There was no hiding it.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe any place that would even dare to call themselves an Irish pub didn't serve Guinness.
No, they call themselves an Irish pub, and all the food is either English or Irish recipes. I mean, all
I
Great
didn't even want to
Britain,
trust. I didn't even want to trust their shepherd's pie at that point. I'm like,
right?
something ain't right here.
Oh,
Ryan
that's funny.
Ryan Burke. Did you see this comment? That's Ryan and from Ryan and JT from Horror Chronicles. Love those guys. We need. I need to come up there so we can go film where that Ozarks Howler sighting was, bud.
Some diddy. Ryan, if there's money in it, I'm just saying.
Ryan's crazy enough to do it too.
Oh Lord. Oh my God. We were talking about these things maybe being underreported. The average person, and I would include me in that about 5 years ago, probably, the average person who has this kind of a sighting would never report it for fear that people are going to think they're freaking nuts.
Yeah.
In fact, I had to be very careful with the coworkers I showed those pictures to because half of them looked at me like I was smoking something synthetic.
Well, half of the encounter stories I've gotten over the years, because I've talked to a lot of cops and people and like lawyers and judges and doctors and paramedics and firefighters that have had encounters, and they're like, "All right, fine, I'll tell you the story, but you can't ever quote me. You can tell people the story, but don't ever put my name on it." And that's generally the proviso I get with most of these guys.
I have a professional license and I'm allowed to distribute narcotics in a controlled setting. It would be nice to know that I'm competent and of my right mind.
Well, that night in Combs Ferry, I think we were all starting to think we weren't in our right minds.
Honestly, I would have been a little bit more aware if I wasn't so hypervigilant and in so much pain at that point. I didn't realize at the time that I walked 2 to 3 miles on a broken leg, and I was hurting.
Yeah, we covered a lot of territory, and you know what? We didn't even cover all of it.
Mm-mm.
No, we got about midway point, I think.
Because
Yeah.
at that point, Steve was having difficulty walking, and I was like, "Look, we got to get Steve out of here. He may end up having to go to the ER." So we
Well,
kind of called
I
it
was
at
having
that
trouble
point.
walking, and they were closing in on us. That's about the
They,
point that we had them
the
throwing
longer we were
cobbles
there,
at
the
us from 2
closer
different
they got.
directions. Yep. And
And I tell you, when it was down to just me, Noah, and Robbie on the ground, I was starting to get a little worried.
I try not to be paranoid. I fully believe their behavior hurt, or why I was hurt, because I fully believed that I was the sick antelope. And
That's why we stuck you in the middle of the group and surrounded you.
exactly, if I had a bunch of, you know, Leos and military who live by the doctrine that nobody gets doc, I'd have been Dogman shit or Bigfoot shit or whatever's living out there. I've been hanging from that damn tree.
There
You
when
would
it
have
was just
found an
me and
arm with a glucometer hanging off of it.
when it was just me and Noah and Robbie on the ground, part of me was wondering if one of us was going to wind up hanging from a tree. They were getting close.
Yep.
I definitely feel like I didn't have enough firepower with me.
Well, when it was just three of us on the ground, I damn sure felt like we didn't have enough firepower.
Seriously.
I was starting to think maybe I should have brought a long gun.
Yeah, I was armed for coyote and possibly deal with dogman or squatch.
Well, I think the next time we make that type of foray, I'm probably at the very least going to take the Keltec, the KSG. Wyatt says we wouldn't have let it get you, Steve.
Oh, I know. Hey, Wyatt, I had full faith that you guys would protect me, but in the heat of the moment, but between the the adrenaline from just hurting and whatnot, I was definitely at least conservatively freaked out. Seriously, I mean, nowhere close to y'all having to slap me to bring me back to reality, but my mind was going to some places that I didn't want it to go to. Because unlike y'all, I mean, I've said this before many times in the show. Part of my role in the show when we started going with more of the cryptid motif here is that I'm the agnostic. I'm the non-believer who wants to believe. My mind wasn't prepared for that shit. I've never had an encounter. I've I just I'm the Mulder of the group. I want to believe.
Well, I'm changing my loadout for the next one. In fact, whenever Noah and I go to film, I've already changed my loadout. I've got a Glock 40 on my hip, and now that I've got the 357, Magnum PI, so to speak, is going in a chest rig. I'm going to keep that 357 on a chest rig and the 40 on my hip, and then probably something else on a single point.
Yeah. I got me a new belly band holder that has a couple of mag pouches on it, so I can carry more comfortably and carry more myself.
Jay, you ain't wrong. I've got my M1 Garand as well, but that thing's a heavy amount to lug.
A sling on that.
I've got the sling on it now, but it ain't light.
If it weren't for the fact I could potentially get myself arrested, my AR with a single point sling would be part of my loadout.
Depending on where we are, I don't think that would be an issue. I was concerned it was going to be an issue that night in Combs Ferry, but
I was too.
Yeah, but I really don't think it's going to be an issue, especially if we're not there hunting. And there were enough of us there with credentials. We could have said, "Hey, we're carrying in case we run into a greater North American meth head."
Meth head or coyotes, or mountain lion. Yeah, I would feel much more comfortable dropping a mountain lion with a 5.56 than a 9mm round.
Yeah. Well, and at that point, even when we're talking about, whether it's a Bigfoot or a Dogman, it's much like hunting a whitetail deer versus hunting an elk. A 5.56, we could bring a deer down with a 5.56, but you'd have to be damn lucky to bring down an elk with a 5.56, because that is one big, heavy, thick animal. I would not use anything smaller than a 7.62 to go elk hunting. Just wouldn't do it. I'd probably take my M1 Garand, take a 30-06. Bigfoot and Dogman are going to be the same way. That is heavy muscle, thick bone, thick mass. And at that point, I don't think it really matters what caliber you're carrying so much as where you're hitting. We've talked about it before. Aim for big artery groups. I don't. And again, disclaimer here: I have no plans of going out and hunting one down. I don't want to be the guy that drags one in to prove it to science. I don't want to kill one, and I will not shoot unless I don't have a choice. But if I have to, I'm going to aim for big arteries. Get the carotid artery in the neck, or if you can get it, the skull's going to be thick on those things though. So trying to brain shot one is probably going to be tricky because I've seen even large caliber rifle rounds bounce off an animal's skull.
Mhm.
Hit the hit the uh,
Well,
hit the brachial plexus running down through the inside of the upper arm. Hit the femoral and the thigh. Hit anything in the pelvic girdle. There's a lot of big bleeders there.
I was going to say, you shoot in the armpit, you're going to hit the artery. And that's something, an armpit is something you can identify pretty effectively. Like a page from DA's books, shoot him in the dick. A normal 200-pound man, the iliac arteries go on each side of the gonads, and the iliac arteries are bigger than my little finger. They will
Yeah,
bleed, and they will bleed a lot. And if they're built anything like a human, it's going to hurt like a bitch to get shot in it. 3D Havoc said the same. Shoot it in the ding ding.
yep.
That'll definitely
And even if it doesn't kill it, it'll certainly end any of its amorous ideas.
I was
it'll
going to say,
definitely interrupt
at the very least, I won't have to dig out the baby oil. Can you imagine you're sitting running through the woods, you get attacked by a 10-foot dog man with an erection? You've got the kind of luck I've got.
Nope.
Been-
Don't want to
been-
imagine that.
They've been airdropping in Viagra rep and dog treats for weeks.
When we went out there, my wife's like, "Do you want to pack any snacks?" I'm like, "I really don't have much here I could pack." I said, "I've got some jacklings." And she goes, "Really? You going to bring jacklings to possibly encounter a Bigfoot?" Okay, that's a bad idea. Forget it.
Steve's messing with Sasquatch already.
See Steve out there with a pot of warm water, putting Bigfoot's hand in it so he pees on himself.
Yeah,
Lighting
go.
the bag of poo and then yelling ding dong and running from the cave.
Gotta love it. Somebody posted earlier, I was running on pure adrenaline. I was getting pretty close to that. I was hurting pretty good by that point.
Northwest Native Tracker says I've held bullets that never mushroomed. They've been fired at short range and decrypted. Sometimes hollow points don't mushroom. I've seen a hollow point punch through a car door and not mushroom. Sometimes they just don't mushroom the way they're supposed to, and that's that's a dangerous thing. I mean, at that point you don't know what the bullet's going to do. But fortunately, if you've got a good quality hollow point, odds are really good it's going to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Dr. 45120 Sharp made a very good point that a girdle shot is also a mobility stop.
Oh yeah.
If you're lucky enough to shatter the pelvis, they ain't walking. It's physically impossible.
Yeah. So somebody asked earlier about what calibers, and again, I don't think it really comes down to caliber. When you're talking about an animal that big, it's hard to say what would have enough punch, unless you're walking around through the woods with a 45-70 or a 458 SOCOM. I don't think just about anything is, even an AK, I don't know would punch it. Because it's a fairly heavy round when used on a human, but when used on something that's 4 or 5 times our body mass, we just don't know.
Right.
And one thing we can be fairly sure, because mammals are all very similar. It doesn't matter whether it's a horse, dog, or a human. Those arteries tend to run in about the same spots. So if you're hitting it in the armpit or the crotch or the inside of the thigh or in the neck, those are big bleed zones.
Yeah. Well, and yes, typically our modern weapons were designed for hunting purposes, but the quote unquote assault weapon types were designed for human targets.
Right.
And so the ammunition for them was designed to drop a human target. Humans don't weigh 1,000 pounds and have 6 inches of muscle over their sternum. It, if you go by the square cube law and these things are increasing, it's very possible there could be that much muscle there. This is a 10-foot tall critter.
Yeah, so if you're wanting to know some place to hit it, that's a quote unquote guaranteed kill shot. I don't think there is one. But if you hit those big bleeds, it's at the very least going to slow them down. Even if they're smart enough to stop a bleed, it's still going to buy you a tremendous amount of time to unass the AO in a hurry.
Yeah, I definitely think those critical bleed zones are going to be the go-to. People always talk about hit the knee. Okay, the knee moves. The leg is moving constantly, just like the head is moving constantly. But theoretically, with the exception of center of mass, anything in the torso is going to maintain relative stability if it's coming at you. And so, your neck, your armpits, your groin, and they're going to bleed like hell. And that's my hope. I mean, I wouldn't want to hurt one of these, like you said. Unless I was going to become some Bigfoot's boyfriend or become food, I wouldn't shoot one of them. I joke that I would probably die petting a critter I shouldn't have. I probably will. And for the scientists in me would love to learn that these things were real and they, are tangible critters and natural critters.
Jay Freiberg says the 4570 was listed as good for dinosaurs per Marlin. Yeah, I remember that. That came out right about the time Jurassic World did. But as much as a cool marketing strategy that is, they don't know. They have no idea how much punch that thing will have. And Harold Goodell says, as fast as they are, does the 31-foot rule apply? I would give them credit for being much faster than us. And if they're close enough where you're looking at them over a pistol sight versus an iron sight versus a rifle sight, if they're close enough for a pistol shot, you're probably in mortal danger.
Yeah. Well, and assuming they move their arms and legs relatively the same speed that we do, if they're twice our size, they're covering the ground in covering twice the distance in the same amount of time. Mm-hmm. So, if we would need 7 yards to get away, we now need 14.
Yeah, especially considering their stride is going to be so much longer than ours.
Right. And I wouldn't want to mess with it. And then you've got the problem of, okay, can you carry the weight of it? I mean, part of the reason the military started carrying 5.56 is because 30 caliber stuff was so damn heavy. I would love to have a 4-bore or something, but, would I want to carry any appreciable amount of 4-bore ammo on the offhand chance that I'm, come across a Squatch?
Well,
I think.
Go ahead, Robbie.
I think, and they're talking about the 4570. I think if you want something that's got a lot of punch, but still fairly lightweight, a 4570 lever action is probably one of the best options that you can have. But like DA said, you don't know for sure if that's going to be something that's going to punch it or not. But I think ballistically, and if you look at everything, that's probably going to be one of the best bets for a light rifle that would probably do what you needed it to do. And in that situation, as like DA said earlier, you're just looking for something that's going to give you some time.
Yeah. And now I don't own any high caliber stuff. I apologize, guys. Would a 4570 be easier to find ammo for than something like a 50 Browning?
I mean, I don't think I've ever been to any major store that sells ammo that I hadn't seen 4570 ammo. It's fairly common. I mean, it's a really popular rifle. It's kind of on the pricey side, especially if you go with a Marlin. But I don't think I've ever. It's easier to find 4570 than it is 458. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's only one place that I've been able to go to that I could reach up and pick 458 SOCOM off the shelf, and that's been that little gun store right there in town that I get my stuff shipped to. Everywhere else, I've yet to see any 45 or 458 on the shelf, but I've always seen 450 or 4570 on the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Billy Mitchell says, was the 4570 round not used on buffalo? And yes, it was. But again, every animal is going to be different. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't work. We just don't know. There's not enough data. My thing is, if I'm pushed into a situation where I've got to shoot one, my plan is to just make it lose interest so I can get the hell out of there. I don't want to go toe to toe with one, because the problem is for every one you see, there's probably 4 that are waiting for an opportunity to get in behind you. I don't want to engage them. I don't want to try to bring one in. If I've got to engage, it's to save somebody's life or my own, and to buy us time to exfil the area as quickly as possible. Because if we're slinging lead, things have gone bad.
Oh yeah. I don't want to think about having to cross that bridge, to be honest with you. Because it's going to be bad. And then worst case scenario, let's assume these things do have near human intelligence. What's to say they're not going to armor themselves?
Well, that's the story of the Genosqua. They would coat themselves in tree sap and roll in river rock, because the arrows couldn't penetrate the river rock. So they're definitely smart enough to protect themselves. And if you see, was it Primal Rage, where they were making armor out of bark? Yeah, I would definitely give them. I would give them the intelligence level to know how to protect themselves.
Because you think about, let's say, okay, you've got a weapon that's rated for buffalo. If you've got a buffalo geared out in Mother Nature's Kevlar and knowing how to use it, that's a whole different kind of critter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like DA said, and Steve even said it, all this is speculation.
Sure.
Because nobody really knows. Because you can't use the same round on, say, if you went on safari in Africa and was going to shoot a Cape buffalo, you can't use the same round on that you would use, or you couldn't use the same round on an elk that you would have to use on a Cape buffalo. Because
if I had to go after a Cape buffalo, those things kill hunters all the time. I don't think I'd use anything smaller than a 700 nitro.
Well, and that's why those big safari rifles exist. Yeah, that's why those big safari rifles exist. The 500 Nitro Express, 700 Nitro, they exist because that's for that big game in Africa. So I mean,
because if you shoot at a Cape buffalo and you miss or you just wound it, it's coming for you, and they can move very fast.
Yeah, Wild Hunt's going to need a 950 JDJ, huh? Do you think Valkyrie could hold on to it?
I always think of that heavy blaster mount they had on Aliens, where they had it on the pivot. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking of Kodiak with one of those and a Ma Deuce mounted on it.
I got to be honest. I got a little bit of joy out of watching one of AK Guy's videos where he had mounted a Ma Deuce on his Tesla.
Well, the guys at Black Rifle put a minigun on a Prius.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, the Brennan Herrera made up his Tesla to look like one of the vehicles in Halo.
The Warthog.
Warthog. Yeah, it was rigged up as a Warthog, and he had a Ma Deuce mount. And apparently, there's a company that specifically makes weapon mounts for Tesla Cybertrucks. Like, that is literally their niche business.
I think I'd want a weapon mount for a far more reliable vehicle. You give me a pintle mount for a 72 GMC Jimmy, then we're talking.
Well, it's like somebody getting a minigun mount for a Ford Pinto. It's like, is there really a market for that?
I probably would trust putting it on a Ford Pinto over a Tesla.
Well, at least with a Pinto, if the worst case happens, you just detonate the thing and just get away.
Yeah. Ting! Touch the back bumper.
I don't need thermite, just a pothole. And for you, PT says tannerite. Yes, that would work.
You know, I've often thought that if we could get, either permission or just do it on our own and camp in inside either Combs Ferry or Joe Bald, just to film all night to see what's going on, see what we could get. Put some low light cameras out, not infrared cameras, low light, because I think these things intentionally avoid infrared cameras.
That'd be fun, I think.
I think it'd be a hoot. I'd love to do it.
Yeah.
I know Steve's thinking right now, my idea of fun and your idea of fun are two different things.
Yeah, I'm at that awkward impasse here where the curiosity in me is saying, yes, do this. And then the common sense is me, it goes, are you out of your damn mind? You know.
Well, there's at least one more abandoned campground on Table Rock we haven't even been in yet. I tried
Well,
getting in it, but it's gated off. I couldn't get in there short of hiking in.
Well, if it comes down to it, I'm all healed up and I have a very expensive brace I can wear. So,
Well, Wyatt said there's some places down in Arkansas that they're having some really good activity, and him and Richard have had activity right there on Table Rock and other places we haven't been. So, if we can plan another outing, I'd like to get with Wyatt and Richard and go back into some of those places where they've had rocks thrown at their boat.
Most definitely.
Hey, this is a great comment right here. Just a guy who yaps says, if you watch Bob Gimlin, he made a connection with a primate study that current great apes tend to avoid cameras and see it as a foreign object in their environment. That's an absolutely fantastic point. If I left to go to Walmart and came back and somebody had mounted a game camera in my living room, I'm going to notice it. We're putting something in their environment. They're going to notice it. So, I was talking with Robbie, hell, what was this, like 6 months ago, Robbie? We were talking about gutting a game cam and building one that's just made out of
We've actually been talking about that for a good long time. But yeah.
So we want to build one that actually looks like it belongs there.
Yeah, we talked about like maybe finding out or gutting it and putting it inside a wooden box to make it look more natural. I think that's actually a good idea.
Plastics are petroleum based, so they've got to have an odor. I mean, just because we can't smell it doesn't mean they can't.
That's true.
So I think if we could mount a low light camera inside a box that we've basically covered with bark, we could probably find either a hollow tree or cut a section out with a chainsaw and mount that in there and make it damned hard to find, especially if we cover it with some leaves or moss or something.
Yeah, I mean there's a bunch of different ways we could go about that, and maybe even finding, instead of getting in there with a chainsaw, finding a tree that's got a natural hollowed out place in it, and then just camouflage it, building the box, putting it inside there, and then camouflaging it further from there. That might be something that we need to actually start looking into.
I think it's a good idea. Robin Ray says, do you think the range of Sasquatch eyesight is close to that of orangutans, chimpanzees, and gorillas? I don't know what we can say for sure about the range of their eyesight, but I would guarantee their low light vision is 10 times better than ours. Especially if our theory is correct that they spend a lot of time underground. I would say their night vision is leagues better than ours. Probably even if we were using night vision gear, they'd probably see us long before we saw them.
I would think it would almost have to be just based on the fact that, at least by some accounts, they're aerial, so they've got to be able to see from tree limb to tree limb in low light. I would think that they probably do have pretty good night vision. Better than we, at least as good at resolution as we have at a greater distance.
Yeah.
Well, most animals have a lot better eyesight than we, especially predatory animals.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
you get into other types like excuse me, that aren't predatory, but most predators have way better eyesight than we do.
3D, yeah, they do seem to be more active at night. Because they certainly have the advantage over us at night. Even with flashlights, we're lighting up areas, sure, but flashlights work both ways, kind of like tracers. Tracers work both ways. You might be shooting at an enemy, but they see where that tracer's coming from.
Yeah, kind of like laser sights.
I mean, you think about that, and you know this, DA, and so do you, Steve, because you've been in it, but you're taught to click your flashlight on when you're in a room, but they also teach to hold your flashlight way away from you. That way, if somebody starts shooting at the flashlight, there's a less chance of them hitting you because they're probably going to shoot where that light's at.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep, hold it
That's
out at arm's length.
why the Picatinny mounted TLR1 is a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
It's great for building searches, but if things go pear-shaped, they know right where to shoot.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, like you said, blessing and a curse. You got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see, but whatever you're looking at knows exactly where you're at.
Well, it's like the infrared stuff, any kind of a traditional NOGs, yeah, you can see, but you're also putting out a bright beam of infrared light that anything can see infrared is going to be able to see perfectly.
That's why when I'm in the field, I will use the TLR1 if I need to, but I've always got this on my belt. This is a ProTac HL5X. It is 3,500 lumens. I mean, this thing is stupid bright. And that's why whenever we go out, heck, I had it with me when we were in Combs Ferry.
Well, that one I had, the rechargeable thing was 9,000 lumens.
Yeah. So we had plenty of bright lights. But
It's
again,
like the power of the sun.
Yeah. But again,
And yet the damn things were still staying out of range.
Yeah. They were very, very adept at staying far enough out where we couldn't see them. Robin Ray says, I was more wondering about their ability to see in the UV infrared spectrum. Well, we know certain species of animals can see it. Heck, I've watched, I've watched trail cam footage of deer. When the trail cam snaps, the deer turns and looks straight at that camera. They knew exactly where it was. Certain species of dog have been known to respond to it. Also, we know that the visible light spectrum, humans see what is it, Steve? About 5% of the visible light spectrum.
Something like that, yeah.
And cats see like 25%. So what are they seeing that we're not even aware of?
Yeah. Well, dogs can definitely see infrared. The older remote controls for TVs flash infrared light. And like literally, if I point the remote at the TV and flash it, my dog will look right at it. Bees could see ultraviolet, so other things probably can too.
Just Ryan says, fellas, it seems you need DevGru level NVG goggles. Yeah, but I don't think I'm going to get that big care package dropped off from Uncle Sam. So those are probably out of the price list.
If only we had a guy.
Yeah.
I guess Mathan's heading out. Hey, good night, Mathan. Thanks for being here, buddy. Steve Stepanek says, have you ever noticed that closed circuit TV on government facilities get pictures of Bigfoot? Yeah, and there was a bunch of footage captured at one of the casinos down near Miami, Oklahoma. So yeah, closed circuit cameras do catch these things, especially if they're in an area where they're already seeing light, like a lit parking lot or something near a trash dumpster. because that's how they got him at that casino. They were raiding the dumpster after the restaurant dumped the food for the night. Um, but lots of animals can see wavelengths of lights that we can't. So we have no idea, other than just an educated guess on how good their vision is, how good Bigfoot or Dogman vision is. So I would say our best chance for catching one on a trail cam is a true low light camera, and not an IR camera.
Yeah. Even then, it's still sketchy. I mean, even the batteries, the chemical reaction that creates the voltage releases gas.
Mm-hmm.
If they could smell that, if that kind of stuff didn't happen, Teslas would never catch fire.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, we're only guessing. This is one of these situations where we need to find a well preserved dead one and analyze physiology to know what it can and cannot do.
Yeah, but that's like you say. Every one of these shows, like ours included, these are all just our best guess. I mean,
Yeah.
like
What do you
Steve
call it?
just said,
Swag?
and
Scientific wild ass guess?
Yeah.
Yep, swag, scientific wild ass guess.
But all we can do is base these guesses based on other animals, because nobody knows for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we're making the assumption they're a great ape, but I mean, how far up the evolutionary chain did they split off?
Yeah, but are they? Are if you look at the book "Them and Us" by Danny Vendramini, which does a forensic reconstruction of a Neanderthal skull, it looks more like a modern Bigfoot than we were ever told.
Yeah.
What if it's relic? What if they're a relic population of Neanderthal? That certainly puts them on a much closer intelligence level to modern humans.
Well, it certainly makes you realize why we developed the uncanny valley. Can you imagine if you were a Cro-Magnon hanging out at your campfire, and one of those bastards shows up? Being able to identify that it ain't you would have been awesome.
Yeah, no kidding. I've got a copy of that book, Them and Us. I'm going to bring up one of the images of the reconstruction of what it did, of what they did, of a what they believed, the forensic reconstruction they did of Neanderthals, and the ones we always saw in museums growing up just looked like a regular human with bigger nose and swarthy skin, but that may not be the case. Um, the reconstruction that they were doing with Danny Vendramini's Them and Us looks more like. Let me bring this up. And I will share it. This is what Danny Vendramini came up with, and it's a fantastic book. What does that look like?
Can you zoom it in a little bit, do you?
Let me grab it and save it. I just brought it up in a tab, so give me a second to bring it up.
Oh, I got you.
I hadn't saved it yet.
Sorry, I'm rocking my 13-inch monitor here, and between that and wearing my Papaw bifocals, I'm struggling a little bit here.
Okay, let me share this one now.
Yeah, Steve Stepanek, I totally agree with you. I also believe they're probably great apes, but I'm just trying to look at all points of things here. Ooh.
Look how much bigger their eyes are. That would indicate a much greater capacity for low light. The size of the pupils, those eyes are made for gathering light. And that matches the description of what a lot of people describe as a Bigfoot encounter.
If the head was the forehead at the top of the head, whatever you sagittal crest, whatever you want to call it, was higher, that would look a lot facial shape wise like what I saw. Now, obviously, I couldn't see the eyes because it was so dark that night, but they were the area where the eyes were really big, but they were like deep set.
Well,
Top of the
here's
head was a lot higher.
here's a couple of the other possibilities that they came up with, and I'll bring this up too. So, I mean, like, oh god dang it! How did that switch? I didn't even click on that, and it changed. Okay. Okay.
Mm.
You know, some of those would look a lot scarier than a lot of the Bigfoot things I've seen. If I ran into one of
Seriously?
the woods, those are kind of terrifying.
Well, look at this one right here. How many times have you heard it described as not having a neck?
A lot.
Look at this one here. It looks like it doesn't have a neck. It basically just goes from traps to head. And again,
Yeah,
look at the eyes. Look at the
It's
size
a
of those
very
pupils.
powerfully built critter.
Yeah. And that's what Vendermini believes Neanderthals actually looked like.
Definitely not something I want to tangle with.
I think that's definitely food for thought. Because if that is what Neanderthal looks like, it's very possible what we believe is Bigfoot is just a relic Neanderthal, relic hominid. And he's not the only one that thinks this. It's a theory that's gaining a lot of popularity among like paleontologists and anthropologists.
But to that same vein, even though they say that's a Neanderthal, that could just be what that great ape looks like. So it still
Right.
could be a great ape, but still look like
Right.
that. And that's just what people were seeing back then, and it's just been theorized and speculated on that. Oh, that's what it was. Still could be just an animal that's a great ape. That's what it looks like. Who knows?
Cajun Dog,
Well,
thanks
I
for the
mean,
super chat.
technically, we're a great ape.
Yeah.
You
In
know,
our realm of
there
primates,
are certain
primate
yeah, there's certain
bloodline.
anthropologists that call us the fifth grade ape, and you know, maybe they're number 6. When you think about the damage a chimpanzee can do to a human, and chimpanzees are significantly smaller than we are.
Yeah,
Think about what this
much
thing could
stronger.
do.
Yeah, if
Scale
it
it up.
scales up the way any other primate does, we know a chimpanzee is perfectly capable of ripping a human arm off. There have been lots of cases of chimpanzees attacking and killing humans. Hell, even Jane Goodall, when she was studying chimps, she locked her own child up so they couldn't get to it because they had to have tendencies of carrying off and eating small children.
Well, chimpanzees have eaten faces of people too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a chimp.
But I think the only safe assumption is that it would scale up, because look at the difference in strength of a chimp to a gorilla, and look at the difference in how that scales up. So it would have to scale up and you look at a male silverback gorilla, a full adult male silverback gorilla weighs what, 500-600 pounds,
and could probably bench press a truck.
Yeah. So I mean, if you've got something that's roughly twice the size of a gorilla, that's pretty dang scary to think about what it could do.
Yeah.
Like picking up a tabletop that weighs a couple 1,000 pounds and using it like a frisbee.
Yeah.
I mean,
certainly explain a lot.
Yeah.
It's like when you see those videos where they put like a 55-pound drum in a gorilla's cage as some kind of a mental enrichment toy, and then you watch them smash it. It's like, okay. That's steel and weighs how much?
Liv Erickson says, "What do I need to Google to find those images?" Google "Them and Us" by Danny Vendramini. It's a book, and then just click on Google Images, and you'll find those and a bunch more. But if you get a chance to read that book, I highly recommend it. That book went a long way to shaping what I believe about Bigfoot sightings. It's why I'm still firmly in the flesh and blood camp, because just because we can't explain it doesn't mean it went from another dimension or stuff like that. These things are just capable of doing things we don't fully understand. Robert D. Yeah, chimps are 4 or 5 times stronger than humans. They'll tear us apart, and it's been a number of cases where they've bitten the fingers or they've torn the face off of people. There was a lady that had one for years, and one day it just flipped on her and ripped her face off. Chimps are very dangerous, especially when they decide they're done taking your orders.
Yep. When they get to be teenagers and the hormones kick in.
Yep.
Um, but again, I mean, these things are just. Even if they're an ape, they're very intelligent for an ape. Apes are problem solvers. Chimps are problem solvers, and they're tool users. So that's we would be doing a big disservice to assume these things aren't at least that smart. But if they are Neanderthal, that means they have a much bigger brain than most other primates, and that's one of the things that set humans generations and generations ago back. That's what set us apart from other chimps, because a lot of chimps are omnivorous, or they eat a lot of berries and things like that. When early humans started eating more and more protein, you know that's what changed it. I mean, it allowed us to develop bigger brains. It allowed us to get bigger and stronger. Um, a more protein diet changes everything.
Well, but going back to the intelligence, there's all kinds of videos that show this. But there was one the other day I watched where a little kid was at zoo and he had like an iPad or something like that, and he was showing the gorilla the pictures, and the gorilla was watching him tap the screen to change it. The gorilla started tapping the screen, or tapping the glass when he wanted the kid to change it. So the gorilla would look and he'd tap the glass and the kid would change it. And he'd look, tap the glass, and the kid would change it. And the kid stopped changing it until the gorilla pretty much took over and was like tapping the glass every time he wanted the picture changed. I mean,
they're intelligent. Well, look, that one that what was its name, Coco. It had a full vocabulary in sign language.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, when it was told that Robin Williams had died, it mourned because it had learned to interact with him. And on the same note with the iPads, look at the cats that play Fruit Ninja.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cat.
So I think we've as a species, humanity has greatly underestimated the intelligence of most animals. What was it? There was a quote I read one time. It said, "The most dangerous thing is to underestimate your enemy and be content that you are stronger."
Right.
Little Patty says it probably uses more of its brain capacity than we do. Well, it's certainly been relying on it on facets that we've forgotten how to use. I mean, how many people have lost contact with just their basic survival instincts? It's you couldn't take somebody. Let's just say, for example, you had a guy that was born and raised in downtown New York. The only time he'd seen trees were in Central Park. You can't take that guy and drop him in Alaska, Les Stroud-like, and expect him to come out of it alive. Dude's going to die. But by the same token, look how much skill it took, and how much time it took Les to learn those skills. I mean, that's just something as humans that we've gotten away from, that these things are perfectly adapted to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, try to figure out a way to say this where it doesn't sound like I'm being demeaning because I'm not. Um, Look at what the Amish are capable of
Hmm.
without technology.
Right.
You know,
And
uh,
something I've been
they're
told is that the Amish have Bigfoot stories. They just don't share them with outsiders.
oh,
Well, a perfect example of what you were just talking about, Steve. Get on YouTube and look at Japanese carpentry. Look at the joinery that they do with no power tools.
yeah, no power
They make
tools, no nails, no glue.
yeah,
Or that
yeah, they make
staircase at the mission in New Mexico that they still don't know how that guy built it.
yeah. I mean, so but that's not something that you just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to make one of these complicated. That's something that takes time to learn. Just like Les Stroud didn't go out one day and say, you know what, I think I'm going to go uh, in the middle of the desert and survive for 5 days. I mean, the stuff that he had to learn. Bear Grylls, he learned the stuff that he learned in the military. Les learned the stuff he learned through years and years of practice.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you constantly live out in the wild like these things do, there are things that they know how to do that's just second nature to them that we as humans just have to learn because it's not something we do every day.
Right. We've lost it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, if you were stuck out in the middle of a 1,000-acre wood, the fact that you've unlocked all your achievements on your Xbox don't mean shit.
Yeah.
And
You
Think,
know,
those
think
are
about
not
all the Cajuns.
transferable skills. Just because
Yeah.
you
Think
are
about all the
the master
Cajuns
of
down in
Call
the
of Duty
bayou.
does not mean that skill is going to transfer to the real world.
what were you saying, Robbie? I'm sorry.
But all the Cajuns that live out on the bayou, that you know they don't have a lot of the technology. I mean, obviously they're able to get it, but they live off the land. They don't most of the time they don't go to the local food line or whatever grocery stores around to get to fill their food stocks up. They go out and hunt and fish and farm, and that's just not a way of life that a lot of people are. And that's something that the past 8 days has really shown me is people get really, really dependent on technology. Even people who, like, I could go survive if I needed to because of the things that I know and the things that I've learned, but I'm just as dependent on it as the next guy. And this has really showed me, you need to practice these things. These are
They are.
perishable skills that if you don't
Right.
practice,
They're like
you
fire
know,
making. I mean,
yeah,
everybody thinks that all I got to do is grab a lighter. Well, what if you don't have one?
yeah,
Right. You know, I didn't realize how profound that actually was until a few years ago. I was down camping there in the Mark Twain National Forest at one of these little resort areas, an organized campground. They had fire pits, and I was making campfires each night. So we roast marshmallows and tell ghost stories and all that the typical shit you do with around a fire. And I was using traditional fire making things like modern things like lighters and tinder and stuff like this. There was a group of teenagers camping next to us, and they were amazed that I could light a fire. Like they're watching me and trying to duplicate what I'm doing because they couldn't light a fire. Yeah, and I was working with you know some dryer lint and a cigarette lighter and some dried leaves and whatnot. You know, don't think about this stuff, but I was also raised in a generation where there was no internet, and Boy Scouts was a thing that every boy did. But I
I
don't
was in the
have,
Scouts as a kid.
but like I couldn't track shit. I mean, like when Robbie was told us about some of those tracks we were seeing down there, I'm like, all right, I toes pointed in the direction, okay, because I'm not a hunter, I'm not a tracker. I could field dress a deer because they taught me in school, but I've never done it. It's just a skill set I don't have.
I grew up deer hunting, and I thought I was a pretty good tracker until I got out in the woods with Robbie. And in 10 minutes, I learned more about tracking than I had most of my adult life.
But there again, that's the same thing. That's a perishable skill. If I don't get out and practice that, and look at things and look how how nature is interacting with these things, then that's something I'll lose. Just like Steve talked about with making fire, and same thing with shooting. I mean, if you don't get out and practice, you're not going to be as good a shot as you are. If you want to go out and shoot one time every 6 months
or a year or however long.
or yeah, it's no different than pro athletes who they don't go out and play the game on Sunday or whatever day of the week that their sport plays. They don't. That's not the only time that they go out and do that. I mean, they constantly practice. There's constantly things going on that you have to hone those skills. Same thing. I mean, same thing with your. You read books all the time, DA, to keep your writing skills honed. I mean, if you didn't constantly do stuff like that, your writing would probably suffer. Steve, you have to go watch training videos for your job as a nurse. I mean, same thing with me. I have to watch videos about laws that get updated, because if I don't keep on top of that stuff, then I'm not going to know how to enforce a law, and then I end up arresting somebody unlawfully. I mean, so
same thing with Doc. I mean, those medical, those trauma, field medical skills are perishable skills. He has to constantly stay on his keep his edge honed so he can provide the best training to other people.
So, but if you're that creature and you're constantly out there living and having to survive, it's like breathing. But that's why if people would look at it in that light, and I'm not talking about anybody that that we have in our chats or anything like that. I'm talking about people who say, well, how do they we would have had to see them. No, if this is something that constantly strives to stay away from the vast majority of people like it does, then it's going to know how to do that. It's going to know where all the caves are. It's going to know where all the places to hide. It's going to know how to mask its presence.
It's going to know how to backtrack on its tracks.
If you look at it and think about it in those terms, all the gears should line up and fall in place where it's like, maybe that's why we don't see them as much as we.
I've been out in the woods lots of times and seen like spoor, but not seen the bear. I've been in areas where I knew there was mountain lions, but I didn't see them.
Yeah. Well, think deer. Deer's probably one of the most populous animals in North America. You see thousands and thousands of deer tracks when you go in the woods, right? But do you ever see as many deer as you do tracks? No, you don't.
No, I see most of my deer dead on the road.
Well, I mean,
and I know they're everywhere.
If you saw as many deer as you saw deer tracks, think about that as a deer hunter. If you saw as many deer as you saw deer tracks, you'd never have to worry about going. It wouldn't be called hunting. It'd just be called shooting.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna go getting.
Yeah. But people don't think about them or think about stuff in terms like that, and it's all you get these people. It's always like, well, why don't I see more of them? Why don't I do this? Or why? Well, get out there and understand how nature works first before you make a statement like that. And once you understand how nature works, and you're like, there's like 60 deer track right here, but I don't see no deer. I know there's deer, but I don't see them.
Barb's got a good point. She says, how many people even pay attention to their surroundings?
Well, right.
We talk about
how many of us
all the time.
Walk with our face down in the phone? Yeah. It's just situational awareness, and we've gotten away from that because we're used to living in a very organized, very logical, very sterile world. We're not accustomed to, having to sit in our truck to get an internet signal. We've got a different kind of. I mean, shit, I didn't have internet until I was out of college. And now, if my internet goes down for 24 hours, I feel like I've been into the third world.
Yeah.
Cell phones. I got a cell phone my freshman year of college. Casey Calloway just made a good point. How many people have been killed looking at their phone and not paying attention? When
I'm more
Pokemon
worried
Go
about
first
people
came
on their
out,
phones when they drive than I'm drunk drivers anymore.
Oh, right. When Pokemon Go first came out, people were walking off of cliffs because they were looking at their phones playing Pokemon. It's.
I'm gonna
yeah,
catch it
the-
right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna get
Watch out, that
Charizard.
first step's a
Oh! But yeah, I mean, yeah, you miss things. I was joking around with my son one day that he was sitting there staring down his phone. I said, I could have walked through this room naked and you wouldn't have noticed.
Well, and it's like I said about deer hunting. Every deer I've ever got as a deer hunter, I got it because it moved. If these things don't want to be seen and they stay completely still in the bushes, we're probably not going to see them at all. Probably going to walk right by them. You've got to be damned observant to see a deer that is not moving when it's laying in the bush or even standing in the trees. I mean, you've got to be very observant to spot one. Dash 5257 says I keep my head on a swivel. Yeah, I do the same thing, especially when I'm in the woods. Look and don't forget to look up. That's a good rule of thumb, not just for a possible cryptid, but for a possible mountain lion, because they will drop on you from above.
Or snakes.
Snakes. I can't tell you the number of times I've almost walked into a snake that was coiled around a tree branch.
Spiders.
Well, one of my doctors that I work with just got bit by a copperhead. He stepped out on his porch and it was laying up against the door on the top porch step, and it bit him.
Yeah, that's a no
thankfully,
bueno right there.
Well, thankfully, it was a copperhead and not something like a water moccasin or something like that. But I mean, it was right there waiting for him. He had his porch light on and it was sitting there feeding on frogs or whatever the porch brought up, and could he have avoided it? Was he looking at his phone? I don't know. But if it was before porch lights and closed doors and air conditioning, would he have even noticed it?
Probably not. I mean, a copperhead is damned hard to see when it ain't moving. And if you aren't expecting one to be on your front porch, I don't know that I've ever looked on the step as I stepped out my front porch. I probably should now that I've heard that story. But I mean, how many times did I step over a snake?
Right.
I mean, that night in Cold Spring, how many times did we walk past a snake?
Well, and he's got he just recently built a house. And so he's got like the modern conveniences. And so he's got, the Ring cameras around all the things. And so he went back and looked at the camera log, and the, effing snake was sitting there for hours, just feeding on whatever came by, waiting, but he wasn't looking down. He wasn't thinking about stepping over it. He wasn't in its threat radius or wasn't thinking about getting in threat radius,
Dash 5257 says, my dad would be on Table Rock Lake and snakes would drop out of the trees and try to get in the boat. I've been canoeing on the Niangua River and had snakes drop out of the trees into the canoe.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. I was at Boy Scout camp down in the Boot Hill, and a cottonmouth dropped out of a tree, and I got the fuck out of a canoe very quickly.
Yeah, you get a snake in the boat, that's a very good indication I'm about to dive in the water.
Yep.
I hate snakes in my boat.
Yeah, that's a nope rope. Yep. No, thank you.
Yep, I unasked the AO with extreme precision.
I saw a guy mag dump into the bottom of his own canoe because a snake dropped in.
Well, at
Fortunately, he
least they're
was close
naturally
to shore.
buoyant.
Fortunately, he was close to shore, but he had to have that canoe completely repaired because he put like 9 or 10 holes in it trying to kill that snake.
Yeah. I'll bet Doc would too.
Well, I can't say that I blame him. I mean, like I said, I hate snakes. Um,
Well,
but
I have no fear of snakes, but I would not want to have one suddenly surprise me.
yeah. But you know if you have any doubt, well, here, let me pull up an image. Let me pull this image up quick.
I'm not scared of spiders either, but I wouldn't, scoop up a bunch of them and stick them in my bed.
This is a good one. Let me bring this image up. Wait a minute. That. Okay. Didn't save it the first time. Thought I did, but it did not. There we go. That's a copperhead in the leaves.
Hmm. So you say. Can you put a red circle on it?
Well, once you spot him, you can see him pretty
Oh
well.
shit, there he is.
But if you're walking
Wow.
through the woods and that thing
Uh,
ain't moving, you'll step on it.
oh yeah, I have some anti-venom in my future.
Yeah, if you
They
didn't know
don't
that was
actually,
there and you were just walking down the trail, just about anyone would walk right up on that damn thing.
Yep.
they don't even do the anti-venom anymore unless you're having an anaphylactic reaction.
Is
And
that for all snakes or just in general?
I don't know that I don't know. But one of the docs I work with, of course, he got bit and he drives in from Clever to Springfield, which is around 20 minutes or so. Went to the ER and they took him to the back and they kind of assessed him and whatnot. But yeah, he didn't get any antivenom. They just kind of looked at things.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I know for like copperheads, just well, a lot of times a copperhead will give you a dry bite, but even if you're envenomated by a copperhead, they only give you anti-venom for that if you're allergic to it or if you start showing, like you said.
I,
But for a lot of other snakes, you get it just because of the
right.
different type of venom they got. Like the
Yeah. It depends on the venom. I wish Doc were on here because he knows this shit like the back of his hand. But if I remember correctly, copperhead venom is hemotoxic, so it irritates the tissue around it. But you get
see, I
venom of
think
something like a green mamba or a black mamba or half the shit that lives in Australia. It is neurotoxic, and so you have a systemic reaction to it. Um,
here, I
I
got
know
another one
water.
for you.
I know water moccasin bites are worse than a copperhead too, but of course in Springfield we only have or in Missouri we have timber rattlesnakes, copperheads, and water moccasins, and that's it. We don't have all the good stuff you'll have out west.
Find the snake.
Oh fuck no!
I assure you, yes, there is a copperhead in this image.
All right, let me reconfigure my screen here so I can see it better. I want to zoom it in.
you're pretty good at finding them, but I don't see it.
I've literally got it zoomed in. Let me keep looking here. I feel like I'm playing Where's Waldo.
I don't see it.
You can't see all of him. You can just see part of him right here.
Oh geez.
He's partially under the leaves and by that stick. If it weren't for the
Yeah,
shape of
when
his head right there, I never would have seen him.
yeah, when you pointed it out, I see enough. Yeah, I'd have been bit.
Yeah,
I've been done ate.
I would have stepped right on that damn thing walking down that
Yep,
trail.
I've been
Steve,
ate.
copperheads have hemolytic venom, which breaks down
Okay,
red blood cells. Venom is used to subdue prey, allowing snakes to swallow it. Copperhead venom is relatively mild compared to other venomous snakes, and bites are rarely fatal to humans. However, you should always seek medical attention if bitten by copperhead. Symptoms include local pain, swelling, redness, bruising, blistering, nausea, vomiting, weakness, and low blood pressure and bleeding.
so it
So,
is a hemotoxin.
yeah.
Yep, and I remember you telling me, or do you remember hearing what you were telling me about the dry bites? I know they told me in Scouts that getting bit by a juvenile copperhead is worse than getting bit by an adult because the
Because
adults will
they don't have
frequently
any
dry bite
control.
you.
It's an all
Yep,
or
the
nothing
adults.
thing with
Yeah.
them.
Right. It takes a few days to
Well,
build up their toxin like it does for a skunk to develop its fumes or whatever you call those things.
Yeah.
The juveniles don't know. They just give you everything.
Just Ryan says, "What kind of venom do black widows have?" I believe they're a neurotoxin, aren't they?
I believe so as well. Brown recluse is a hemotoxin, which is why all the shit rots when you get bit by him.
Mhm. But I'm just going to throw this out there. That is a perfect example of adaptive camouflage.
Yep.
And if you can't see a snake, which we know for a fact doesn't go through portals or cloak or mind speak or teleport, it is not outside the realm of possibility that you can't see something else because it is that good at blending in.
Yeah. Well,
it's
it's like the story of the Billy or the paintball match that I was talking to you guys about before. It's been on the show before when I was playing with Rick, and he's standing 10 feet away from me and he vanishes in
Yeah.
street clothes.
And that's a guy that was just trained to do it. And he wasn't born to
Right.
it.
No, and he wasn't even prepared for it. It's not like he was wearing the best camo in a ghillie suit. He's wearing street clothes and he's just gone.
Steve, for a black widow, it's an alpha latrotoxin, which is primarily a neurotoxin. But
Okay.
whatever alpha latrotoxin is, I just assume that's a sub area of the neurotoxin, but it is a neurotoxin
Yeah,
for black
it's a
widow.
neurotoxin that would block the transmission of a nerve signal down the axon of a nerve. Basically, it blocks the nerves, and essentially you things break down, things are paralyzed, breaks the communication lines.
Here, I got one more for you.
Ah, damn it.
I see him.
Yeah. Once you see him, you can't unsee him. But
Yep. I could change my screen perspective here. Just a second. So one disadvantage of using a laptop, I can lay in bed, but I can't see all the shit y'all can see. My lovely wife has two 32-inch monitors that she can see shit on. I still won't see him. Let me look.
let me know if you need me to point him out.
Yeah, Ollie Oxford for you. I give up. Tell me.
I'll put the mouse on it in just a second.
No worries.
Ready?
Yeah.
Right here.
Oh, fuck me. Now I see him.
Yeah. Once you see him, you can't unsee him. But if you're just bipping along,
Yes.
as the joke was saying, if you're walking along in a pair of Birkenstocks with your AirPods in, are you going to see that?
Nope. I mean, looking at a whole lot of leg rot. He's a big one, too.
Yeah. And that, again, that is exactly what we talk about when we talk about adaptive camouflage. It is perfectly suited to its environment, as most animals are.
Well, Cajun Dog, hopefully, if you and I are to go out together looking for that thing, you've got some Benadryl for me because I just got bit.
That's
done
why
been
generally,
in.
if I'm walking a trail, I've got my walking stick over there, and I generally keep it like right out in front of me where I can kick it out, and if if something is suspect, I'll give it a bump.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to invest
And
in actually one of those tactical walking sticks that's got all the little doodads.
and another great reason to wear snake gaiters if you're in the Ozarks woods.
Seriously. Yeah, your Doc Martens ain't going to keep you safe. Well, it's like you're going to die if you go in the woods alone. I'm glad you also realize that, Miss Lene.
But that's the that's the ability of just the common copperhead to completely
Discoloration.
camouflage itself in its environment. Now, if what researchers are saying is true, that Bigfoot have clear hair shafts, and like we saw in the Paul Freeman film, where that black Bigfoot stopped right in front of a green tree and disappeared. And when it realized
Right.
that Freeman was still coming closer, it started moving again. Then we could see it again. But when it stopped moving, it became practically invisible.
Well, and think about the snake here, not to criticize the poor snake, but people refer to a reptile brain as being simple and basic biological functions. This is a reptile, not a mammal, not a near human intelligence critter. This is a simple critter who thinks about getting food into its mouth.
Well, boys, we are coming up on the 2.5 hour mark. We're going to start winding things down. There before we settle too much, just wanted to share with y'all one more image, and we can talk about it for a second. This is tomorrow night, folks. Episode 3, Demons Part 2. So, Steve, if you're off tomorrow night or want to join in, we're going to be reading one of my short stories on the air.
Wait, what time, brother?
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Alrighty.
We can split it up and everybody do a few pages here and there. The story's about 55 pages long, so we can
Sweet.
split
If
it
I
up.
can,
That
I'd
way,
like to.
no one person's reading so much to strain their voice. As I'm still dealing with that cough, I'm sure y'all heard tonight, but it's getting better. It's just still not great. So that's what we got for tomorrow night, folks. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us. And before we do go again, I want to put this up one more time for y'all to take note of. Is if you're wanting to help with the disaster relief, you can purchase things off of Amazon or even Walmart.com or any of the online stores, and this is where you have it shipped to. Ship it to Scallywag NC Fulfillment, 121 South Middleton Street, Robbins, North Carolina, 27325. Anything that's shipped there, they are putting in trucks and taking out to areas affected by the disaster, and they're distributing it themselves. So Scallywag's doing some amazing stuff, and remember them when you go to shop for Christmas or birthdays, because it's really amazing that they're doing this stuff. So check out scallywagtactical.com and use discount code DA Roberts 10 on to get 10% off on your purchases. But this is why we're proud to support Scallywag Tactical and Dark Angel and Brock Blades, as because this is making a difference. And
Well, and if nothing else, seriously, Da, in the 2 years or whatever, however long it is we've been doing this show, I've learned that the DA Maka Nurse is the best group of fans out there. You know, it's a good group. It's an amazing group of people, and the risk of being political, fuck FEMA. I mean, we can do it. We can do it. We got this, and good people prevail.
absolutely. And like I said, if you really want to reach out and help out, and we know for a fact this is going to where it's needed. Uh, I can't say that about a lot of other organizations, because the response from our government for this has been kind of pathetic. So, if you can help, great. But if nothing else, folks, just keep these folks in your thoughts and your prayers, because there are millions of people affected by this, and it's heartbreaking considering the number of lives lost, the number of homes lost. Hell, a couple of entire cities are gone, and it's going to be much like Hurricane Katrina. It is going to be years before this is rebuilt. Hell, there's a couple of interstates that are shut down and probably will be for the next 6 months.
I-26 and I-40 are projected to be back in operation in 2025.
Yeah, so
Wow.
the two major interstates in that area are no longer usable, because that much water can do ungodly things. It took out entire bridges. It took out towns. With that much water, there's not much can stop it.
No.
So,
I've seen pictures where the tarmac is just gone.
Yeah, or it's
Like,
either
it was just
undermined
picked
the
up and-
road and collapsed it, or washed away bridges, washed away vehicles, and it may be months. We may not ever really know for sure exactly how many people were lost in this, because they're still looking for missing people and survivors. So keep those folks in your thoughts and your prayers, and go back to scroll back to that screen and put it on pause so you can get that address. If you feel like you can help and you want to help, send it where it's going to do some good. Because I hate to say it, but I think it's kind of up to us. We're kind of on our own on this, and definitely praying every night for all the folks affected.
And on a positive note, come see me and DA next Friday and Saturday
in
Yeah.
Greenville,
Ohio.
at the Spirit of the Woods Bigfoot Conference. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see you guys there.
Yeah, and if the I can't see the chat obviously, but if that web address is in the chat, that's the way you can get your tickets, and you can get tickets to everything, like my tracking class, all that stuff. You can purchase your tickets ahead of time. That's probably about the best way to get it. And you can get like an all-inclusive package, get you all the hands-on classes, all the speaker things, and all that kind of stuff. So do that. DA and I will both have a table, and she said that we were going to be right beside each other. So come see us, get a book, get some hats, get some other stuff, and say hey.
And I'll have some wild hunt patches there as well.
And there'll be a lot of other wild hunt stuff too.
Well, and not to steal Robbie's thunder, but I've seen some sneak previews of some pretty cool shit from Lone Wolf Customs. So, it's worth showing up just for the swag, guys.
Yeah.
I wish I could be there. Unfortunately, we're working 5 to 6 shifts a week. Can happen, but I'll be there in spirit, guys.
Well, we'll miss you, but hopefully we'll have some closer here soon. And one thing I want to mention is, if y'all are interested in this sort of thing, Robbie and Doc and I and Steve to some extent, he hasn't always been able to make some of the shows where we talked about it. But we've discussed the possibility of taking over a campground for a long extended weekend, because there are a number in this area that would happily host it, and doing our own convention where we've got Doc there talking about battlefield medicine, and Robbie teaching tracking, and having some speakers there. And if that's something you guys would be interested in, let us know. It's not something we'll be able to do right away, but hopefully maybe summer or fall next year if things are going well. But let us know what you think about that, and I hope you guys will join us tomorrow night when we do Campfire Tales, where we're going to be doing Demons Part 2. And if you haven't listened to Demons Part 1, it's already up. Me and Doc and Robbie, were you there for Demons 1?
Nah,
that was just me and Doc. Yeah, you did the first one.
I was working that. I had to go in and work that night.
Yeah, you got called in to work. But you can go back to the one we just released last week, and you can catch up on Demons Part 1. And if you're enjoying the stories, share those far and wide, because I really would like to see that kind of take off. to be able to do that as a weekly thing as well, where we do a short story a week, or even at some point maybe just start reading chapters from books, because I think that's going to be a great way to not only attract a bigger audience, but to share the audio versions of these books with folks that have been waiting for them. Because I love Cam to death, but Cam is busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, and I've got 33 books out and a shitload of short stories, and he just can't keep up. So we're going to do some of them ourselves and see how things go. So if you guys are enjoying that, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let people know. Check them out. If you know people that like Cameron Buckner's stories or Miss Naoma's, uh, let them know about the campfire tales, and let's see if we can't grow that thing to it where it's a permanent fixture and we're doing stories all the time. Uh, so again, thank you guys. Don't forget about the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. I'm wearing my Till Valhalla project. The back of the shirt, if I could turn around and show it to you, it says, "Don't let the hard days win." So if you've got a loved one or a family member or just somebody you care about, that's a veteran or a first responder in any capacity, reach out and let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, because your one text or your one phone call might be what keeps them off the edge. And let's get 22 a day down to 0. So we're going to wind this show up with a toast. It's something we've been doing for a while, and it's something I'm going to continue to do. And the toast is from an old Irish song called "The Parting Glass." And it's about saying goodbye to those we've lost along the way. It's a beautiful tune, and I hope you guys will raise a glass with me. Doesn't matter what you're drinking. And the toast says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone. Slanja.
Sláinte.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.